The three-part series finale for X-Men 97 is beginning, and many folks out there are ecstatic with where it's going. But a word of caution, ladies and gentlemen, do not get too excited if you fear the propagandizing of the X-Men as part of a broader push by Marvel and Disney. Today, I've got a hot take that is sure to sizzle and perhaps even be so divisive that some disagree. But folks, I'm here to tell you, this is important. You need to see it. I'll show you where X-Men is really going. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we endeavor to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, and today it is perhaps more important than ever. If you clicked on the thumbnail, if you clicked on the title, you know where this is going. I am afraid, folks, that X-Men 97 is aimed at perhaps the majority of America and being quite negative towards them. I want to talk about why, and I'm going to show this to you. You need to stick around and find out, though. Do you agree or disagree with me? And let me know in the comments down below. Go ahead and click on the like button, folks. Sit back tight, and here's what we've got. This out of Beau DeMayo, who is the showrunner and writer for X-Men 97, and based on the writing that we've seen thus far, incredibly talented, incredibly. I am taking no umbrage at all with the skill that I see. Animation is a different story here. The animation, I think, is poor, but Beau DeMayo doesn't control that. Take a look at Beau DeMayo's profile picture, and you can see why Disney might have let him go at one point. But all of that said, Beau DeMayo has posted Magneto was right, and this is what I worry, folks, that some of you out there are missing. I don't think that this is just part of the fan fiction. I don't think this is just part of the showrunner fiction. I don't think this is just part of the Marvel canon. I think that this is more than marketing. I think that this is actually, the slogan that people of a particular persuasion feel is true. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Let's go now. I'm going to show you a couple of articles that I think present what many people in the middle and the right are missing about this show. Let me show you. This is out of ScreenRant. It's by Simon Gallagher. X-Men 97 Episode 8 Ending Explained. Let me show you how this is being perceived by many. If we go down here, it says the three-part finale of X-Men 97 Season 1 is titled Tolerance is Existence, essentially underlining new villain Bastion's plans for a perfect future where humanity remains superior and mutants are forced to live as slaves for the betterment of humankind. Cable reveals early in Episode 8 that after a 300-year evolutionary war, Bastion prevailed and rounded up remaining mutants, forcing them to use their powers to create a utopia for humans. Okay, this is standard fare for X-Men, right? No, it's not. One of the things that I realized early on in the episode is when I saw yet another image of the crowd, right, of the rubes who hate the X-Men, the bad people, the anti-mutants, when I saw their signs, and those signs appeared to be very reflective of what fundamentalist Christians would put up in the real world, I said, wait a minute, what is the conflation that's going on here? Why would they have those types of signs that don't look like the sorts of things you would see in the fictional world, but rather are specifically pulled out of our world and are aimed at a particular group? Well, let's take a look at this. If we go down to this next set of paragraphs, this is very important. I want you to understand how X-Men 97 is being interpreted by those who might dislike the vast majority of Americans who I think sit in the middle ground, who I think are part of the sensible centrist territory, and even those on the right, of course. But I think that a huge number of people are seeing this in a much different way, and you need to be aware of it. X-Men 97 perfectly plays into modern extinction fears. Here's what it's talking about. It says it would be wrong at this point to ignore the fact that X-Men 97 once more follows the Marvel's mutants trend of reflecting real-world issues. Early episodes obviously drew an irresistible parallel to the events of January 6th, and Bastion's extinction plan echoes modern fears about the rise of AI. X-Men 97's writing team cleverly drew a parallel between mutant kind's superior skills and the advancement of AI, anchoring it to the eradication of jobs in the name of greater efficiency. But folks, I'm not here to, I don't think it has anything to do with AI. I think that this is a story about populism. Now listen closely. Here's what I'm talking about. In the past, the writers behind X-Men stories have all known that Professor X, Charles Xavier, is in the right. You see, the argument that exists at the core of X-Men between Professor X and Magneto is that Professor X has always thought that neither humans nor mutants are superior. The lesson that he teaches is coexistence because we all are of a infinite value, if you will. And so humans have their definite worth, and they're not bad at all. And mutants have their definite worth, and they're not bad at all. And both need to be a part of the system. And so that is always traditionally what it's done is created a story where the outcasts face off against those who fear the outcasts with the goal of recognizing a future harmony, right? It's attempting to bridge a gap that is based on misunderstanding. What X-Men 97 is doing is it is designating these groups as actually categorically different in a value hierarchy. So I know this is deep, but hang tight and I'll show you some more of what I'm talking about. In X-Men 97, despite the fact the writing is awesome, right? I mean, you have to give the devil its due. X-Men 97 is fantastic in terms of writing, in terms of pacing. There are some issues, but overall, I mean, I love the cameos of Spider-Man. I love the Nightcrawler battle action sequence today, especially where Wolverine is pulled through with Nightcrawler, and you see the perspective of going through the teleportation. All of that was fantastic, just remarkably well done. But there's something here going on that's important, and that is that what X-Men 97 has done is it has taken humans and mutants, and I think it's taking the actual position that mutants are superior and that humans need to get out of the way of the mutants, and the humans are the oppressors because they're trying to hold on to power. That's a postmodern story, but it's a deep postmodern story that's not explicitly, overtly, outrightly stated. And so I think there are a lot of folks who are missing that this is what the far left, right, the far fringes of the left, they're loving this because that's what they know it's about. And I think that the team that made this is out of that camp. And so we need to be very careful with it. We can declare it to be excellent qualitatively in terms of the writing. But folks, we need to recognize what this is and what it's doing. And I'm not out there in left field because I'm going to show you now how it's being perceived beyond places like ScreenRant. This out of Entertainment Weekly by Nick Romano. How X-Men 97 embraced the Magneto was right slogan turned meme. Let's scroll down here to this paragraph that's so important. It says, intolerance is extinction. Let's say it again. Tolerance is extinction. Okay. And I don't know if that's going to be presented as being false at the end, but that ought to give you a shiver if that turns out to be something that's embraced. Bastion's ultimate plan is revealed. Cable shares that in his future, Bastion created a utopia for mankind built on the subjugation of mutants. He upgraded humans into his hybrids while any surviving mutants were put into camps and forced into manual labor. Xavier's dream came true. Mutants ushered in a bright and peaceful future as its backbone. This is the future, it seems, that Magneto always knew could happen. In the grand tradition of the X-Men being a metaphor for the plight of minority groups, DeMayo and his Season 1 writers have expertly used the dueling ideologies of Xavier and Magneto to explore the idea of collective trauma, using references to real-life events like the Pulse nightclub, like Unite the Right, right? Remember, Charlottesville, and even events 9/11. And that's what this is about, folks. This is allegory. And so we need to be really careful about this because what it's suggesting is that tolerance leads to destruction, and therefore the correct answer is that which Magneto has always espoused in the comics. That is that might is right, and power should be used at this hour to secure a future peace where you subjugate the inferiority of the humans. Switching to that and making that be the right thing is a terrible thing. Now, I don't think that Beau DeMayo and the writing team is fully going to go there, right? I think that Professor X is still the one that's in the right, but there's a reversal actually taking place of what it is that Professor X is all about. Let me show you this. It's out of Pink News. And remember, why do we do this on this channel? Why do we explain entertainment at this level? And even go out there on a branch, I would say. This is going to draw, I think, some viewers who say this is too far, this is not actually right. But I'm doing my best to show it to you because narrative matters so much. We've talked about this in the past. Stories are the way in which you role play and you build out your ethic in life. And I mean that. So, for example, when you sit around the campfire and you listen to how the hunters went out and captured the beast, right? If we go back thousands of years, that story allows those who did not go on the hunt to role play that event in their mind and become the hunter, and then they practice it in their mind and in their sleep. It's the same thing when you go to a movie. You role play out as if you are the character who's in the lead, and you role play out the trouble that they face. That's the hero's journey. That's the dragon that needs to be slayed. And in X-Men 97, the X-Men are attempting to slay a dragon. They have a conflict that's ahead of them. And the conflict is that humans seem to be sabotaging efforts for mutants to coexist. But in this cartoon, it's not necessarily that the mutants want to coexist. It's that the mutants want to separate into their own state. That's the Genosha idea. They want to be in their own state, separated, and not even there, left to their own tribalism will the humans allow them to exist. And so that is a tale. That is a tale of a deeply dark idea that no matter what you do, the snake will come in, and not only will it strike your ankle, will it strike your heel, but it will kill everything that you love. And therefore you must kill all the snakes. And that's a point that you might be able to make unless you understand that the idea is that the snake is anyone who disagrees with your viewpoint. And then when you realize that the very far fringes are identifying themselves as the X-Men, and anyone who doesn't agree with them and their encampments, if you get my drift, that they are the snakes who must be snuffed out. That's a danger. And we need to recognize that that's what this story is, even if the storytelling itself is extremely well constructed. Here's what Pink News is saying. Charlie Duncan here. X-Men 97 fans left reeling after brutal episode, but what does Magneto was right mean? And this is just let's read the whole thing. Here we go. It says, X-Men 97 was released in March 10th to critical acclaim and rapturous applause from the gays. It's saying it, not me. After every episode, not least because of the sexy voice actor behind Gambit. It's a continuation of the much-loved animated 90s show featuring Marvel's merry band of mutants, and has breathed new life into the X-Men. The central themes of the franchise, primarily how minorities live in a world that hates them, are as present in the series as they have been since the very first iteration of the heroes flew, teleported, crawled their way on the comic book pages, then into cinemas for live-action films. But folks, that's not accurate. This isn't true. Stan Lee never intended for the X-Men to be the embodiment of our own world's minorities. That's not what the focus of X-Men is supposed to be. X-Men, the idea behind it, number one, the goal was to give them, the concept of mutants was simply to have a very easy way of explaining how they get their powers. But then beyond that, the genius of it was that they could represent the outcast in every situation. And everyone can therefore identify with the X-Men because you've always been an outcast in some scenario. Now they are being commandeered into representing minority groups because the minority groups know the power of taking over that vision. And then the categorization of humans is already a subjective thing. So you have to be really careful when you say, well, this hero represents us. It's always represented us. And the bad guys represent the not us. And in this story, we're supposed to wipe out the not us. Like you're really going places that you don't want to go when you believe that. But that is a tale that has been told all throughout history. And hell awaits when that breaks into the real world, when we adopt that as the ethic. It says, throughout the franchise's lore, friends to enemies, Charles Xavier, Professor X, and Magneto, it gives out the names that he has gone by, have represented two sides of the same coin when it comes to mutant acceptance. And yes, when we say mutant acceptance, you'd be right to note the parallels between the queer community and the X-Men. And it posts this. Anyway, what I am saying, let's take a look at this. It says, fans of the show will recognize the phrase Magneto was right as a reference to his view being the correct one, and that humans will continue to exercise dominance over mutants unless strongly warned otherwise. That's not what it's saying. And they know that. It's not saying that humans have to be strongly warned otherwise. The group that you disagree with, right, doesn't have to be warned otherwise. Magneto's ethic, his ethos, his modus operandi has never been to warn. It has always been to subjugate. Subjugate those with whom you disagree. Folks, that is antithetical. And the comic book writers for decades knew that. And that's why Magneto was the villain. The problem is, and we can play with it, right? But the problem is that Magneto If he's no longer the villain, then his ethic is no longer the villain. And if his ethic is subjugate those with whom you disagree, and if the ethic is that there is a value hierarchy in people groups, in this case, mutants are better than humans. And if you apply that to the real world, you get into very scary places. Now, I told you that they're changing the way that Professor X, what his ethos is. And I'll explain that. Professor X has always been about the idea that humans and mutants bring something special to the table, and that they're actually not that different, and that they have a shared path together. And that is the American dream, right? That's the idea that various people groups can all come together with shared visions and goals and hopes, and that will bring forth something approximating a lesser form of paradise. That's the idea. That's the goal. In the highest form of that ideal, that's where you land. Now, what that's being presented as is the idea that Professor X, Charles Xavier, that his goal is empathy. His goal is unbridled empathy. And so what we're going to see, I think, is a battle between two philosophies that exist in the far sides of the very left spectrum, but not the more broad battle that has existed within the X-Men, right? We're no longer dealing with are people and mutants intrinsically valuable in the same way, and therefore it's not just that you should coexist, but that you need to harmoniously live together, and both sides are utterly valuable to the other. But rather, now we're going to get, should you be empathetic to those who disagree with you? And by the way, this is something that we've seen from Beau DeMayo. I'll show that to you in a moment. But take a look at this quote from Beast. This is really, everybody pay attention. Perhaps the professor's vision for the future was too nearsighted, Beast says, and begging for tolerance was our first mistake. And this, I think, really gets into, this is the major flaw I see, the intrinsic. This is the snake that's being brought into the garden. It's the lie. It's the very subtle lie that's happening in X-Men 97. The X-Men never begged for tolerance. The X-Men were the heroes to all. The bad people were not all humans. The bad people were the humans who had hatred for those who were different from them, but not because of philosophical differences, but because of immutable differences. That's the difference. What we're doing now is we're taking this and we're applying it to philosophical differences, ideological differences, worldview differences. And we're declaring that if you don't share my worldview, we're done begging for we're done begging for tolerance from you for worldviews. And in today's world, tolerance of worldviews means acceptance of worldviews. Folks, I got to leave it there. We'll come back at a future point about what Beau DeMayo is saying about Charles Xavier. And it shows, although he has a tremendous knowledge of the X-Men, clearly, and a love for them. And he's a massive fan. And I give great respect to what he has done with this. But he's missing the broader point of what Professor X was always about. It's a subtle twist. And I think it comes from living in the world today and the way the world is seen today. But the way the world exists today, I think, is poorly constructed in terms of viewing everybody of being of absolute divine worth. And I think the X-Men at one point captured that. In fact, I would say that Nightcrawler at one point was a very good representation of that. And I still think Nightcrawler is quite good in this show. I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch the show. I actually think you should. And I actually think the show is good. But you need to watch it with eyes wide open to understand what is at play here and understand how it's being perceived. Because if you're not someone who exists on the very far fringes of the political spectrum, if you're somebody in the middle or if you're somebody on the right, you need to understand that it's appearing to me, and we can go through this if we need to. We can go through episode by episode to show you the way the villains are depicted. But it's looking to me like you're the one who's on the wrong side of this show. And I don't think that's fair to you. All right, folks, that's the video for today. We hope you enjoyed it. Apologies if we went very deep, but sometimes we need to explain what's going on in entertainment and keep you ahead of that culture curve. And we've got to show you what those who dislike you, perhaps, are saying about a show that everybody likes. Joke maybe on you. All right, You tell me what you think. It's your turn. Drop a comment down below and let me know. Pro, have you gone insane? Pro, are you making to do much about very little? You know what? I'm open to all of that because I believe in free discourse, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Also, folks, like, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, as we always say at the end of these, because we mean it and we say it to everyone, regardless of your background, your ethnicity, your beliefs, anything, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
What are you doing?
Well, I was feeling really behind and uneducated on all the happenings in the entertainment world. So, I was trying to work out a solution, specifically around 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And, well, this is what I came to.
That's not what that means.
Oh.
But, why wouldn't you just watch Midnight's Edge on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays? And on Tuesdays, on WDW Pro's channel, you got the Pro Show, and on Thursdays, you got That Park Place with Jonas and Vash.
Jonas? That guy sucks.
Well, feel free to jump in the chat and remind him of that regularly.
I won't feel free. I am free, baby. But I think you forgot something important.
What's that?
On Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, there's something really special that happens on Floral from Under a Rock.
Ah, right.
Under a Rock, where we don't simply talk about entertainment, we actually try to be the entertainment. Which, I mean, Floral, you're actually kind of dragging the show down, you know what I mean?
Well, theoretically, you and everyone else knows now what's happening at 12 Eastern Time throughout the week.
Yep. Now, just a point of clarity. You say 12 p.m. Eastern Time that the Midnight Edge will be happening. Is Tom gonna commit to being on time?
That's a fair question.
Okay.